Naomi, and today I'm going to be planting Eremurus himalayicus, also known as Foxtail Lily. Eremurus are impressive looking plants that flower during summer. They've got an upright habit, a long flower stem and a cluster of flowers on the top which form a big flower spike, almost like a fox's tail, hence its name. And they originate from Asia, Himalayas, and they grow really well there in the dry grasslands. So when you want to grow them in the UK, they will grow very well in any free draining soil. They are fully hardy, but they just need their soil to be a bit gritty, sandy, and just generally free draining. Anything that gets waterlogged won't do for these. But the good thing is, when choosing your site and soil, even if the soil is a little on the heavy side, you can dig in some sand, some mulch and grit just to make the area that you're planting in that sort of free draining consistency and texture that they like, and that should really help and give them a good chance. Also, when choosing your site, they can be a little bit particular. They are an upright, tall flowering plant, so they need to be in a bit of a secluded spot so the wind doesn't come in when they're in full bloom and knock them over. You can always stake them, but it's nicest to have them in a place where they're not battling against winds. And they also need a really sunny spot. They'll grow well in a spot which has sun all day long, and this spot I've got here is absolutely ideal because it's protected from winds with the shrubs behind me. It gets sun all day long, and the soil here is already really stony and free draining, so this is perfect for them. If this soil wasn't already so stony and gritty, I would dig in a load of compost into the area and some sand or grit, and then I'd also put, when I plant my bulbs, I'd put a layer of grit down on top of the bulb as well, just so when it does rain, they're not sitting on top, the bulb isn't sitting on top of a patch of wet, soggy soil. And what you'll need to do to make sure it's fully free draining, because these bulbs need to be planted quite shallowly, about 20 centimetres deep, but you'll need to dig down further to turn over the soil to make it nice and loose and aerated first. So I've dug down here about 20 centimetres, about a foot deep, and I've turned it all over and broken up all the lumps, and then I've left it about 20 centimetres below soil level. Now these are Eremurus bulbs. They are odd looking things, look like an underwater creature of some sort, and they're very brittle. You've got to be careful because almost every time you pick one of these up, a bit falls off the roots, but they'll still grow. They grow out of the crown, as long as not all the roots have completely snapped off, but they're very brittle. And when these arrive, you can plant them in spring or autumn, but when you buy these and you get them delivered, you'll need to give them a soak in water to rehydrate them for 4 or 5 hours or so, should be fine, and then just plant them as soon as possible. They don't like to be out in open air for too long because they'll become even more brittle and they'll get broken. So that's an Eremurus bulb, and I want to plant it about 20 centimetres deep, but the crown of the bulb needs to be quite close to the soil surface, almost on the soil surface. So I've dug over this area here, making it nice and soft for my bulb. You need to dig a hole which is wide enough to fit all the roots. And just break it up so it's got a nice soft bed of aerated soil there. So the roots want to be planted about 20 centimetres deep, and the crown, the middle part, wants to be quite close to the soil surface. So what I'm going to do is just to make a raised part in the middle. Now if you have a heavier soil, you can do this with, this is when you add your grit or your sand. You put a good layer, a good inch or so on there, and raise it up into a little peak in the middle of the hole. So this planting area now is 20 centimetres below soil level around the edges and higher in the middle. So when I put my bulb on, the crown of the bulb is going to be at soil level, and these roots will be flattened downwards. So now I've planted it, you can cover it over. Just be very gentle, because those roots will break easily. So although they'll grow with some broken roots and the ends snapped off a little bit, it's best to try and keep them as intact as possible. Okay, that is snug under the ground now, and that will be fine over winter like this. The crown of the bulb is just about showing through the soil here, and because this is kind of invisible now, you can either just try and remember that they're here, or as I'm going to do later, come back and put a cane in right here so I know exactly where it is, so I don't accidentally dig it up later in the season when I'm planting my spring bulbs. Don't want to damage it, and so also the cane might be useful when it starts to grow in the spring. I can tie it onto the cane just because that flower stem is long and I don't want it to fall over. So that's my top tip for planting Eremurus. Once it's in there, it's almost invisible. Stick a cane in so it doesn't get lost and it doesn't get disturbed later on when you're planting other things. And so that's fine over winter, and that will start to grow in the spring. If there's a frost due and there are leaves popping up already, the frost can cause a little bit of damage to the leaves. The bulbs are hardy, but the leaves don't like that early frost damage. But don't worry, if they get a little touch of frost on them and they start to look a bit tatty, more will grow, and they will put on growth later on again, so that's fine. But if you wanted to protect them in the young leaves in the spring from frosts, you can just put a bit of fleece over, or a little bit of straw over the top, just over the early spring months, just till we get past that that stage where the leaves are coming up and they're still a bit sensitive. And so these should flower in their first year. So next summer, I'm planting them in the autumn, and then they should flower next summer, and they will grow back every year because they're perennial. And but after they've flowered, what you want to do, as soon as the flower stem looks like it's finished, just cut the flower stem off at the base, and then leave the foliage where it is, because that's still getting energy from the sun. The foliage is putting that energy back down into the bulb for next year's display. So leave the foliage, just cut down the stem, and then just leave them as they are in the ground. And over the years, you should get bigger bulbs. The bulbs will multiply. You'll get multiple stems, and they will look better and better and better each time as they establish. And that's about all there is to know about getting Eremurus started. Once you've planted them, do give them a water, and then that's about all there is to do before the winter. They've had a good soak and they're still a bit damp, these bulbs, but you want to moisten up that soil around them, give them a good start. Unless there's if you're planting in autumn and there's plenty of rain forecast, then obviously don't worry about watering them in. But if you're not sure if it's going to rain or not, it's best to just give them a good soak. So I'll just put a whole canful down onto this area here. And there we go. I don't think I've forgotten anything else. I think that's all I need to do for now. I'll come back later and pop a cane in there so don't forget where it is. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope you enjoy growing your own Eremurus.